Hello, I'm Hannah Caulfield here for Honiton Nub News, and we're joined by Terry Darrant, who is a local historian who has just self-published his latest book on the street names in Honiton and the history behind the names. So I'll get Terry to introduce himself, and then we'll find out a bit more about it.
Hi, my name's Terry Darrant. I've written one book about Honiton, and 10 years later, I've written another one.
Fantastic. So yeah, okay, well, let's start with your current book that you're just self-publishing.
Yeah.
Can you talk about what motivated you to write the book?
Well, it started on, there's this really good group on Facebook called Old Honiton Group, and there was a question that popped up on there, I think it was in lockdown, over why is Cuckoo Down Lane, which runs off Lower Malpits Hill, so called. And I knew the road existed, and I didn't know, and I don't think anyone else did. And being in lockdown and being furloughed, my mind started thinking about it. So I looked at some of the old maps that I had, and there was one that I hadn't looked at for quite a while. And after quite a lot of eye squinting with this digital copy I had, I finally found out why it was so called, and I won't tell you why on that one, because that was the thing that set it all off. And so it's not an amazingly interesting one. Like I say, it's not. There wasn't a mad old cuckoo clockmaker up on that hill or something, but it's interesting, and it's all just part of the history of the town, But it's just a very unusual name, and it got me intrigued about it. And as I'm guessing a lot of people have done, you walk around town and you see road names. Some people that have lived here a long time will know why they're called, what they're called. Some are obvious, some aren't so obvious, and some nobody knows. I even, while writing the book, asked some people I know who lived down some of these roads, do you know why it's called it? And they didn't have a clue. So it was just the intrigue, really. And after finding out quite a few of them, there were a couple that did elude me. I could not find out why they were called it, and ironically, they were some of the more modern ones. But no, it's interesting. Just the places you live, you spend years living there or looking around, and you don't know why they're called what they are, and yet it's on every addressed envelope you get, isn't it? So
That's it. It's a massive part of the town, actually. And so what sort of time in history are a lot of these names? Where do they originate from? I suppose
well, they span all across, really. I mean, there's some that probably, I mean, like for example, New Street. You'd think that was probably new. It's a new street. Well, that's probably one of the oldest roads in town. I mean, off the top of my head, without the book in front of me, I think there's even evidence that could go back to 1100. So, but there's other roads that have probably been thoroughfares for carts and traders for millennia. But
So why New Street then, out of interest?
because you're trying to get something without.
That's it.
There's an old Honiton legend that says that the town used to be, because St Michael's Church at the top of Church Hill is the original parish church. The church in the town centre was only built in about 1838, I think. And the rumour was that the town moved from the top of the hill, where St Michael's is, down into the valley. And the new road that connected the two was called New Street. So, it's been said that generally, if you've got a road called New Road or New Street, it's usually probably one of the oldest in the parish or the village or wherever you live.
I was going to say it's quite a common. There are lots of names that seem to be a common theme throughout towns, actually.
Yeah, there are. I mean, for instance, there's like one road. One that has always baffled people is Silver Street. There's several theories as why it's called Silver Street, and it's quite common, I think, in the West Country. There are examples in other parts of the country, but nobody knows why it's called Silver Street. It's just been lost in time. You'd think maybe silversmiths lived down there or something, but there's no evidence of it. And it's there are some like that which are just I could only include the basic information of when roughly it was built, and but the name itself has eluded history, I think.
Was there a lot? Did you find a lot of that sort of dead ends in your research?
I would 99. Well, maybe I've been a bit too generous there. I would have thought maybe most of the 95, 96% of them, I was able to find fairly concrete answers on what they were called. You know, some of them, I mean, quite a few of them I already knew because I touched on a lot in other books, for example. And for example, like Sawmills Way, I've lived here long enough to know that that used to be where George Blaze Sawmills was. So that's how that estate got its name. I'm giving away too much here, aren't I? But there's other places that you look at and you just, oh, well, why is that? And that it's funny, it's more the modern ones, I think, where developers or more maybe planning authority people have named them, and you know, within the last 20, 30 years. But the records the more modern records don't reflect the finer details. Like, for instance, I was going through some old borough council records trying to find out about some Honiton roads, and all it says was developers put forward X, Y, and Z as the name, but there's no information as to why or where it came from. So, and there are a couple that have stumped me, and I've just had to write what exactly was when they were built and what they were built for. But no, most of them I managed to find.
So what did your research look like then? How did you go about? Obviously, you had this idea. This was lockdown, sort of, so it hasn't been long in the making.
No, it was. I mean, my first book took me about 2.5 years to research and write. But
talk about that quickly. So, what was your that was written or published 10 years ago, almost to the date?
Yeah, it was. It went out on the 4th of December, I think, in 2010. So
yeah,
I think
you that there.
I think most people, well, if anybody's seen it, that's my old book. Well, I say old book. It's still available, but it's I mean, it's quite thick, as you see, so it took a bit longer to write. That was a general history book of town, but I mean, I really enjoyed doing it. But it was a lot of work, and I thought I won't do another one. But like I say, lockdown does strange things to you. So
it does indeed.
I mean, it started off, I thought, oh, this will be a quick thing I can do over a month or so, and then you get more into it, you find more out, you slowly add bits of more information, and it grows into big more.
Yeah. What were you doing then what resources were you using to research these names?
Well, I've got a lot of, since I did my first book, which was 10 years ago, I've obviously been very interested in the town's history, just because it's where I live, and I don't know why is anyone interested in anything, I suppose. And I've just, a lot of people I've met and things, or I've had meetings with people, if ever I hear there's any history or photos and things that they've got, I usually say, oh, can I have a look, or can I have a copy, or, you know, like make my own little archive. So in the beginning, a lot of the research was based on things that I just had on the computer. I've got a digital copy of a lot of old maps and documents and things. And then as lockdown lifted and things slowly started reopening, I started looking in the museum and the record office in Exeter, and contacting people. I mean, Margaret Lewis, the museum, was very helpful because she knows a lot of other people who live in the town. Actually, Eureka Terrace which I'm not going to tell you on that one because that was quite a funny story.
Okay.
She, I think it was Pat Perryman, she got in touch with, the lace maker, who's very well known around town. And she told me why that was so cool. But I thought that one was going to be a dead end as well, because you think, why would somewhere in Honiton be called Eureka, which is a phrase coined by a Greek philosopher, I believe, you know.
That's right. Yeah.
So yeah, no, I mean, it's been a bit of a mishmash of reading old documents, looking in things, looking at old maps, or.
So, what was the biggest surprise then? What was the biggest sort of, wow, I did not expect that, or that was the sort of most interesting? Obviously, you can't give too much away. I'm aware of that. And I do know there's one thing you can give away, especially for Nub News. So I'm looking forward to talking about it.
Yeah, I think Eureka Terrace was one of the more, because it was a bit of a funny, quirky story, you know. There was something, I mean, like, for instance, I think I'm going to get this wrong. I'm going to get the road close or street name. I think it's Minifee Road off the top of my head. That was unusual. I was a bit surprised at that one. And I think those were the main two that I thought were, I mean, there were others that were in quite interesting. But then again, a lot of them I did have suspicions, if I not, sorry, I had suspicions about rather than if I found out. So Eureka Terrace and Minifee Road, I hope I got Minifee Road right, were probably the two that I found, oh, I didn't know that. Or, but I mean, roads are named after all sorts of things. A lot are named after people, a lot are named after old names or old things locally. I mean, there's even one road which I said I'd tell you that's named after a ghost. So
That's right. That's that one.
yeah. So but yeah, it was a mishmash of asking local people, because obviously local knowledge locked away in people's brains is by far the most. I must admit, Lee Close was one that I didn't have any idea about, but that was from local knowledge of people. Yeah. So yeah, I want to give more away, but then I'm going to distract from buying.
So tell us the ghost story then.
Well, I can't really. No, all right then, I'll do it for you. No, there's I'll tell you. Monmouth Way is the one that's named after a ghost, and it's an old ghost story of Honiton.
Brilliant. I think it's fascinating. I think as well the interest in name, origins of names is something quite widespread. I think this book is certainly going to be appealing to a lot of people, not only in Honiton as well. So a bit about actually where we can pick up the book and yeah, how people can get their copies.
It's available from a few places locally. The museum, I think, are going to be supplying it. They just wanted to see a copy of it before they committed, and I haven't even got it yet. It's just been a bit delayed with the second lockdown and things. It'll be available from the Little Shop of Seasons in High Street and Leeson's, the gift shop in New Street. It is going to be online. It's a bit frustrating because I've been trying, it is on Amazon, but there was a bit of an error in the listing over the publication date, and I've been trying to get them to bring it forward, but I'm not sure if that's going to happen. So it might be that it won't be available for Amazon until the 1st of January, but I put it on eBay as well. So if people want to get it online, they can, because I mean, even though my first book, I thought it would be local, but I was sending copies to Australia, America, Canada. I was really surprised, how far they went. But obviously there's a lot of people that have lived in the town or have got relatives who lived in the town, and it's, worldwide connections, really. So
it is. I think as well, I don't know if this is true, but I think there's a real interest in history, maybe more so now. I know for myself, I was never that interested in history growing up, but now I find it fascinating, and I love sort of imagining what it would have looked like in places, through the ages. Why do you think that is then? Do you think the sort of interest in history?
I suppose it's just because, I mean, like for instance, maybe now more, the present isn't that brilliant with lockdown and, a worldwide pandemic going on. And I suppose no one knows what the future holds, whereas we do know what the past holds. And the past, people often like to share memories of the past. And I suppose maybe for me, one thing is just it was a simpler time back then, before, when you actually went to your local shops to buy things or ask people locally rather than just picking up a phone and Googling it,
Yeah.
I don't know. I think maybe it's just an interest with a former way of living. We've all got relatives who lived and died in the past, and maybe it's just that connection with them that is the fascination. I mean, I like to think people are interested in history. I know there's obviously a lot more things people are interested in, but that's probably where my interest lies, with the past or the history of an area, especially if you live there and you go downtown and it hasn't really changed that much since, the facade of the buildings, for example, hasn't changed really for about 300 years. So you can almost look and think, oh, I wonder what that shop used to be, or Mr. Bloggs used to live there or something. It's just an interest.
Absolutely. I think it's amazing. You talked about your Facebook group and the photos that go on there. You look at it and you think, wow, it's fascinating to see, the town back with no cars on the road and all the shops. But like you say, actually so recognisable, because actually it hasn't changed an awful lot. We're very lucky in Honiton because our high street's, you know, still kept a lot of the history in the buildings.
Yeah.
And
it's a shame. I mean, we got away from the bombing, for example. I mean, like, there's pictures I saw just through something else I was doing about a year ago. Exeter was absolutely devastated in the Blitz. I mean, there's one picture, an aerial shot. You've got the cathedral, and then just rubble. That's it. You know, I think Exeter had quite a lot of nice little suburbs and little Georgian squares and circles, a bit like Bath, you know. But I mean, obviously Honiton survived the Blitz. We didn't get bombed, but you know, we haven't managed to keep away modern developers in the 60s and 70s in some places. But there were some lovely buildings in the High Street that are gone to that. But no, I mean, generally, yeah, the High Street, and there's a lot of conservation, and a lot of them are listed. So yeah, and it is like, almost sometimes you can just look up and almost think, oh, I wonder what this was like 200 years ago.
Absolutely. I think it's brilliant. Well, thank you so much for chatting about that. And yeah, I think it's going to go down really, really well, and people will be, you know, picking it up for Christmas, certainly.
I hope so. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I just hope that it's of interest. I mean, it's something that hasn't been written about before, I don't think, and other things in my other book where I had written about road names or street names, people have been generally interested in. So, I mean, I'll just say, just beware that not all the roads in Holland had a ghost or a murderer hide behind them. Some of them are a little bit more mundane reasons, but overall, you know, you can hopefully enjoy it. And oh yeah, I forgot to mention, it will be available from the bookshops in Sidmouth, Ottery, and Axminster as well.
Excellent. Thank you, Terry, ever so much. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, Merry Christmas to everybody.